Hello, I am driving you. Welcome to the Flipping and Wholesaling Houses in New York show. I am Michael Pinter, where I teach you how to start flipping and wholesaling houses in New York if you're already doing how to grow your business. So, the question I got today is earnest money refundable? So, first I'll explain what earnest money is, and if you stay to the end, I can give you some tips on what you should do on a seller for earnest money and what you should do as a buyer for earnest money. So, now, earnest money is a deposit. So in 49 states, earnest money is usually a nominal fee. It's common for people to give $100, $50 in other states when they go to contract. It's just something that shows that there's happening, that a transaction is happening, and very often the check isn't even deposited and it doesn't matter. In New York, it doesn't work that way. In New York, typical earnest money is 10% of the purchase price. So if you're buying something for $300,000, they're going to want $30,000. Now you can negotiate how much earnest money is, right? You can give less if the seller agrees, but that money is given, and really the contract does not take place. The seller won't sign it until the buyer sends the earnest money to the buyer's attorney, sends the earnest money to the seller's attorney, and that check is deposited. So, for example, the language of New York contracts say that if the check bounces for whatever reason, that you're not in contract. So earnest money in New York is always significant, and is always being given, and is always deposited. So first understand that's earnest money. That is a deposit given at contract. Now, is it refundable? So the answer is yes, but the question is what makes it refundable? So it depends what contingencies you have in the contract. So in general in New York, and this is also different than other 49 states, New York, when you may sign a contract, unless there are specific things that are mentioned in the contract that are excluded, you need to convey clear title. So what that means is if there's any problem with title or any open liens that can't be paid off at closing or any mortgages or debts or anything attached to the property, seller has to cover it. And if a seller doesn't cover it, they can't convey clean title, and therefore the transaction doesn't happen and the earnest money deposit gets refunded. At the same time, a typical house being sold from one party to another party will have a mortgage contingency, which means if the buyer has trouble getting a mortgage, they can just provide a denial and the earnest money will be refunded. There are other contingencies that could go into place, and these get negotiated. Oh, I'm under an overpass now. These get negotiated between the buyer and the seller. So, like in other states, there's something, when you go into contract, there's an inspection period contingency. That doesn't happen in New York. Inspections get done in New York before the contract gets signed. But you can put another contingency. You could say, hey, I need to make sure that some X happens. And if you put that in the contract and the seller agrees, then your mortgage is contingent. Then your contract is contingent on that. And if the seller can't do whatever you say he's going to do, or something can't happen, then your earnest money is refundable. It'll be refunded. Now, the question really comes is, what if I just change my mind, right? Can I get my money back? And the answer is, it depends, right? So sometimes you can have a conversation with the seller and say, I don't want to close. And the seller will go, I don't give a crap. I can sell it to somebody else. Or, you know what? I don't want to sell anyway. I didn't give you your money back. As long as both parties agree, he can refund your money. Now, what if the seller does not want to give you your money back? Then it's an issue, right? And it's not so simple to think that, I've had so many people tell me, well, if you don't close, I'm just going to keep your money. It's not that simple. Even though the seller's attorney is holding the earnest money, they can't just take it. Okay, I just won a lawsuit where a guy was holding a six-figure deposit of mine. Six-figure deposit of mine for over a year and a half. Because I said there was a title issue. They couldn't convey title, and he said it wasn't an issue, and I was still required to close. And thank God we won the suit and we got all the money back. But I was prepared I might lose all that money. It was an issue, right? Thankfully I had a good lawyer and I had good legal grounds due to the wording of the contract, which is why you always need a good attorney. People always call me and say, I need the cheapest attorney. You don't want the cheapest attorney, right? If everything goes great, it doesn't matter what attorney you have. But when things hit the fan, you need a good attorney. And luckily I had an attorney who drew up a specific wording in the contract which gave me an out. And because, I'll just say what it is. There was an easement around the property. It was a luxury property. It was a 7-figure purchase, luxury property, and I needed to build a pool on it for the area. It was out in the Hamptons. Stupid purchase that I thought. And there was an easement on it that prevented me from doing what I wanted to do. And even though I really signed an as-is contract, nothing was specifically written about this kind of easement, and thankfully the judge found in my favor. But if you don't close, it's not like the seller just takes the money. It's not that simple. That money cannot be released from escrow until both parties agree, and it's very common for a situation where a buyer backs out at the last second for the seller to say, okay, we're keeping your deposit, and the buyer to go, no, you're not. And then usually a negotiation ensues. Sometimes you'll split it in the middle. Different things happen. It really depends on the circumstance, right? Why, when, does the seller have... Very often, if the seller has somebody else to sell it to for the same price or more, the seller may say, I don't care. I don't want his money. I don't want to fight about it. Sometimes the seller's pissed off and the seller says, F this guy. I'll fight tooth and nail for it. I don't care. Right? Remember, the money's in his attorney's account, but the money can't be released just because the transaction doesn't take place. The money can only be released when everybody agrees. Now, I've had situations where a buyer came in, we gave them time of the essence closing, buyer couldn't perform, and the buyer just said, keep the money. So I kept it, and I sold it to somebody else. So it really is important that you have an attorney, not just who's good at writing contracts, but who's good at doing enough real estate deals that he's been through this to know, right? In that situation, the buyer's attorney just didn't understand that all he had to do was say, no, you can't keep the money, and I would have probably given him some of the money back. That's the truth. It's not instant, right? It's not this magic thing. It's in an attorney escrow account. The attorney cannot release the funds without written authorization from the other party to release it. And, I almost never have that happen when I'm the buyer, because when I'm the buyer, I always close. But sometimes it'll happen to me on the seller side. And when I'm selling something, a buyer can't close. So is it refundable? It's refundable if the terms of the contract are clearly not met. So if you have a mortgage contingency and you provide a mortgage denial, you should get your money right back. Someone recently called me the situation where the guy was refusing to give back the money in a situation like that, which is crazy. So what are the things you can do as a seller to make sure that you keeping that deposit if the guy doesn't close? So the first thing you can do is you could say that the deposit is non-refundable, right? That's the first thing. Most buyers' attorneys will not agree to that. They're going to say it's insane. If you can't provide clean title, why would I give you the money? But you can put some wording in it. It's short of clean title. If the buyer doesn't perform by X date or time of the essence closing, buyer agrees to release the funds already. You can do that. So that's one thing. From a buyer's side, you want as many contingencies in there as possible. You want the wording to be as liberal as possible. That gives you an option to say, hey, this contingency wasn't met. I want the money back. So this is completely dependent on the communication between your attorney on both sides and the other side, whatever side you're on, your attorney and the other side's attorney. So you need to be clear. So if you get some offer of your seller and you think this guy is full of crap, you need to talk to your attorney and say, listen, I really want to just keep this guy's deposit. I don't think he's ever going to close. What can we do to grab it when this guy can't perform? Right? So you may say, okay, let's put no contingencies in there. Let's put wording in there that says if the buyer can't perform by X date, he agrees to release the deposit. That's one way. And from the buyer side, you may say, listen, I'm not 100% sure about this transaction. How do I ensure that I get my money back? This is why you need a good attorney, a really good attorney who does a lot of deals, who knows what to do. And I can tell you that 90 to 95% of the attorneys, even who do a lot of real estate, don't know what they're doing when it comes to this. And they just boilerplate standard contracts. They don't know how to put in extra language to protect their client. That's what I see all the time. I see amateurs. I see people that don't know what they're doing. And I'm getting to my spot. I have 2 more minutes. Okay, so is it refundable? Yes, but only under the circumstances, and it really depends on what the wording is in the contract. That is really the important part. 1 second, I'm getting some water. So it's important to understand when you get another party on the contract, if you're a seller and you finally get the buyer, if you're a buyer and you're dealing with the seller, what is, do you trust them? What's the situation? Is this a guy who can jerk you around? Is this a guy who's going to flake out? And based on your read, you want the attorney to put a language of the contract that protects you. Depends on which side of the transaction you're on as to what that language is going to be. But I would say the one thing you should not skimp on is paying for a good attorney, right? I use attorneys that are great. They're not the cheapest, but they know what they're doing. And I've been in a lot of situations where they have saved my ass and saved deals because they're good. If I had used amateur attorneys or even attorneys that were okay but not as good, I had a deal today that I think would have died if it wasn't for my attorney. He really pulled this deal out of his ass. So that's pretty much it about earnest money. So I hope this was helpful. If you want all the ways I can help you, go to howtoflipnewyork.com. If you're interested in finding out more about the course I teach, to teach how to do what I do, go to howtoflipnewyorkcourse.com. If you're interested in finding out information about one-on-one coaching, go to coaching.howtoflipnewyork.com. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. Whatever platform you're watching, please give me a thumbs up. They really help. And keep the comments coming. I post 5 times a week. I run out of topics, so these comments really help me. If it's a simple comment on any topic, it doesn't even have to be related to the video you're watching, I'll respond with a reply. If it's something I've covered before, I'll send a link to the video. And if it's something new, I'll do a video on it. So thank you very, very much for watching.